Before we get into this video, I would like to direct you to the links in the description below. There are petitions you can sign, places you can donate, things you can do if you have no money, and resources to educate yourself as an ally. Black Lives Matter, defund the police. Please enjoy the video. What's up guys, it's Renee. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. This is the second installment of I Read Blank So You Don't Have To. And today we're going to be talking about CRAVE by Tracy Wolff. Now, I'm sure some of you are confused because last week I said that the next installment of this series was going to be Hush Hush by Becca Fitzpatrick. However, CRAVE is the book that started this. I'll put the messages here if Kate will let me. My friend Kate Elise over on Instagram, a fellow author. The reason I got the idea to start doing this series is because we were talking about CRAVE and how weird it was that this had exploded out of nowhere, and it had already been picked up as soon as it was released. We both work for Universal. Universal picked up the film rights to it immediately, and we were like, what the hell is this book? The reason it wasn't the very first book in the series is because I didn't feel like buying it. I didn't want to spend money on it. Luckily I had a free trial from Audible through Amazon, so I used my free trial to listen to CRAVE, and then I deleted Audible. I have 20 pages of notes. So I'm still really trying to figure out the format of these types of videos. I was gonna go chapter by chapter with CRAVE, but then I realized you wouldn't know if I was referencing something as being cringe or as being this or that. So the categories are gonna be cringe moments, lazy or bad writing, parts I actually like, because that's the most frustrating thing about this book, is there are really good parts of it. Like, Hercules is my favorite movie. This is a Hercules tattoo. You guys know that scene in Hercules? I'll try to find it and put it here if Disney won't sue me for $1 bajillion million for using 5 seconds of their movie in a video, where Hades is like, "We were so close!" That, I wrote that multiple times at the end of chapters where it was like a really good moment, and then we'll get into it. Another category is things that make this book sound dated. This book just came out in April 2020, and I already feel like it's outdated and cringy because of that. Another category is just straight up commentary on the weird shit that goes on. By the way, this book is about a girl named Grace who's a mortal girl, a human girl. Her parents die, and so she gets sent to her uncle's boarding school in Alaska that turns out to be full of supernatural creatures. And then the final category is unintentional Twilight satire. Again, I'm gonna insert some messages from Kate if she'll let me. So I think we're just gonna start with lazy slash bad slash weird writing, because the entire time I was reading this book, I was apologizing to my editor Francesca for having to watch this video. She was like, I can't wait to watch your CRAVE video, and I was like, you're gonna be pissed the whole time, because I said it so many times. Mini writing lesson once again. Read your work out loud. Read it out loud. Have your editor read it out loud, because I think the fact that I was listening to this via audiobook made these glaring errors and repeating of words in the same sentence so much more obvious, and I did not know this was a pet peeve until it started happening in this book. So let's just talk about some lazy slash bad slash weird writing choices. Chapter 0, because the book starts chapter 0, which was super annoying. Immediate info dump of, if you told me 2 months ago I was going to be in Fairbanks, Alaska to get a puddle jumper to Denali, the highest mountain point in North America, I'm already bored. I don't need all that information. Chapter 1, which is actually chapter 2. The puddle jumper's landing, and the guy's like fucking going for the landing, and he's telling her, it's a short runway because it's hard to keep a long one clear of snow or ice for any amount of time, as he's landing the plane. Who cares? Tell her after. This is a point of fear. She's very scared because the plane's like skidding across the fucking runway, and you're like, I just hit my blinds. Because it's so hard to keep it clear of ice and snow. Sir, land the plane. Tell me later. This is something that might be funny if I was reading it, but I don't know how it's broken up in the paragraph structure, so I don't know if it is funny. He says it's a textbook landing, and she says maybe if that textbook is a horror novel, he's reading upside down and backwards. If she had broken it up, I don't know if she did. If she did, that's funny. If she didn't, it's clunky. She meets up with her cousin, who is 8 inches taller than her, despite being a year younger than my own 17 years. Her cousin Macy gives her a helmet for the snowmobile. The insulated helmet will keep you warm as well as protect your head if we crash. We know what helmets are, and we also know what insulation is. Thank you so much for telling us what they are and why they do what they do. They're on the back of a snowmobile, and it's very loud, and they both have insulated fucking helmets on, and she's like, is that Cadmere Academy? Instead of just being like, is that it? Like, you're telling me. And then Macy goes, yeah, we should be there in about 5 minutes. I don't think you guys can hear each other. I don't believe for 1 second that you guys can hear each other. Another thing that was weird is this girl has talked about Wikipediaing and Googling everything about Alaska and the school and the this and the that, but she did not expect to get altitude sickness. But I'm from Florida, and even I know about altitude sickness. How much research did you do if you didn't realize that going from San Diego to the mountains was going to give you altitude sickness? So they get to Cadmere Academy, which is a castle up in the fucking remote mountains. They have a giant flat screen, they have Wi-Fi and cell service in the desolate mountains. And again, the highest point I've ever been to was Casa Una, New York, 476 feet above sea level, 7 miles from the nearest town, and we did not have a lick of cell service. Later on, maybe you can realize or infer that that's because of magic, but at the time, ridiculous. She talks about the pterodactyls flying around in her stomach instead of butterflies. That's a great little line if it doesn't take you immediately out of what's happening, and it does, because just a random mention of dinosaurs in the middle of everything, you're like, what? That's the thing, is there were so many little interesting things that Tracy Wolff tried to do, but they were in the wrong moments. Oh, we're gonna get into it, just wait until the actual like fighting stuff at the end. I was like, I feel nothing because you just won't shut the fuck up. So the pterodactyls are in her stomach because she meets the guy Jackson Vega, and I'm reading this via audiobook, but somehow I knew that his name wasn't spelled Jackson normally, and I was right. It's spelled Jaxon, Jackson, because it has to have an X, because he's the bad boy. They have fallen like insta-love. When I start reading the cringe parts of this, you are gonna understand what I mean by insta-love. But then she's immediately calling him Mr. Tall, Dark, and Surly, which is like, that's funny if you didn't just fall in insta-love with him. So make it make sense. Make the connection. She likes him. We just saw her like him. But now he's Mr. Tall, Dark, and Surly, and she's not affected. Her uncle's name is Finn. The student who helps her and turns out to be her friend is named Flint. So Finn and Flint, and Finn and Flint, and Finn and Flint. Pick another name. Pick another name. I say as someone who had like 4 names that begin with the letter C in her series. Pick another name. Chapter 4, I couldn't help but wonder why the icy guy made me hot, Jackson, and the one lending me his warmth left me cold, Flint. We get it. We fucking get it. We didn't need you to spell out the whole illusion for us. You could have just... There's a lot of that. Get ready. Chapter 10, she still knows nothing about these people being supernatural creatures. Do I need some jerk trying to make me his afternoon snack? That makes no sense if you don't know that, like, it makes no sense if you don't know that they're supernatural creatures. Jackson makes his entrance dressed all in Gucci black. She can tell from across the goddamn room that he's dressed in Gucci. How? Don't know.
Editing Victoria here. I'm a poor person. I don't know what Gucci looks like. Maybe it has a certain look that you can tell from across the room, but no idea.
She says icy blank stare in this chapter. This is chapter 10 so much. She's only said like effing and freaking, and then all of a sudden in chapter 11 she says, I saw the fuck you in his eyes, and I'm like, did the publisher say only X amount of fucks per book? And you chose to use it there.
I'm just saying, as someone who uses the F word a lot, I don't oscillate between effing, freaking, and fucking. Like, I use the F word if I want to use the F word.
She goes into the library and hears some weird chanting, and she's like, it might be one of the native languages of Alaska. I really want to hear it, especially because some of them only have less than 4,000 speakers left in the world. Okay, Graciepedia. Chapter 12, this girl named Leah makes her tea from homemade leaves. Homemade leaves? Do you mean homegrown leaves? Do you mean loose leaves? You don't make leaves. Homemade leaves? Read it out loud. Chapter 14, she said something gracefully, and if your character's name is Grace, you can't use gracefully as an adjective. I don't make the rules, you just can't do that. Just like if Rue in the Hunger Games said something ruefully, you'd be taken out of the story because the repeating of words is so fucking annoying. I would never suggest that you abuse a thesaurus the way that Stephenie Meyer did in Twilight. In this case, I am. Find one Chapter 16, they're looking at me like they're the predators and I'm the prey they can't wait to sink their teeth into. First of all, we get it. Second of all, what in the long-winded metaphors are you talking about? Jackson runs after her and she's like, I'm trying to run away from all the things he makes me feel when really I just want to grab onto him and hold on tight. She keeps acting like she has no idea how she feels about Jackson. But clearly she does. Clearly she does. That was very annoying to me. Chapter 17, she looks at me like I'm a few snowflakes short of a snowball. Where is her editor? I just want to talk. Give me the Addy. I just want to talk. Chapter 18 is the first time she refers to the orange and dark water scent of Jackson. Dark water? Is dark water a cologne, or does she mean like the dark water of the ocean? Or like, when I think of dark water, I think of like, I'm from Florida, I think of swamps. Does he smell like oranges and swamps? Does he smell like Florida? Jackson has a bunch of friends that are called the Order, and the rest of the Order shows up to like back him up against Flint. And she says, for the first time, the phrase "got your back" makes sense. The first time in 17 years you understand what the phrase "got your back" means. I don't believe that. Tracy Wolff, the author, wants us to think that Grace is all at once the smartest person in the world and the stupidest person in the world. And you gotta choose. You gotta choose. Jackson has a really good line in chapter 21. But it's in Macy's voice. Macy is like my favorite. She's a cute little cinnamon roll. She has really cringy lines, but also really good ones. And this line is, I sprained my ankle. I'm not dying of consumption. That's what Grace says. And then Jackson says, yeah, well, the night is young. And I thought that was funny, but Macy said something very similar to that a couple chapters before. It's in the things that I like. I'll get to it. Chapter 21, I find myself relaxing despite myself. Guys, reading is power. Read your work out loud so you can hear how fucking bad that sounds. Chapter 23, we find out that Jackson's brother and Leah's boyfriend who died, his name was Hudson. And again, I didn't see the spelling, but I wondered if it was spelled like Hydsin because stupid spellings, because Jackson spelled stupidly in this book. If Hudson was also spelled stupidly. If you've read it, let me know. Oh, chapter 24 and I think 25. Yeah, they're just texting these whole 2 chapters. I don't fucking know why. And he texts her like he doesn't like food or something, and she's like, so what do you like to eat? And then she's like, oh, that sounded suggestive, ha ha ha. And then he's like, I don't think we're there yet, but let me know when we are. I don't know what that means either. I wonder how I'm going to keep this beautiful broken boy from cracking my already battered heart wide open. This is the first time I used the Hades, we were so close, because there is a bunch of really good stuff before that, but then we fuck it up. Chapter 28. Really good stuff, and then my heart is beating like a heavy metal drummer. Ma'am. Chapter 32, she says she's terrified of him touching her because of the intensity, but then immediately says she has no trepidations about doing or being anywhere with him. So you're terrified of him, but you have no issues with him doing anything or being or taking you anywhere. Chapter 33, the title is Madonna's Not the Only One with a Lucky Star. This is gonna make sense when I go back to like the dated stuff. Please decide if Grace is a silly teenager who doesn't even know like what the game Frogger is, or if she's an old soul who loves Madonna. Make it make sense. Pick one. And when I talk about the stuff that makes this sound dated, you're gonna understand why I don't believe that Grace even knows who Madonna is. Chapter 34, she says that he has a craving in his eyes. We've said the title. Kisses as soft as a snowflake, as delicate as permafrost. Come on. My knees go weak at his tongue on mine, just like one of those heroines in a novel. His hands were around her. He like grabs her biceps, and his hands were around her back at first, which seems way more romantic than like grabbing her arms. Like, don't grab my arms like that. That's not cool. Chapter 38, I take a deep breath and hold on to it with both hands. No, you didn't. Chapter 43, I wait for the other shoe to drop even though 100 of them have already fallen. That's not how that idiom works whatsoever. This is when she's finally talking to her uncle. At chapter 43 of 66, she's finally talking to her uncle about the fact that there's supernatural fucking creatures at the school that he brought her to. And she's like, how could he think I wouldn't figure it out? I knew something was wrong. No, she didn't. No, she didn't until chapter 24 at the earliest. And she was thinking that Jackson was an alien. She literally thought he was an alien or something because she was like, could not figure it out. Could not figure out what he could possibly be. Even though when I get to the cringy stuff, we shoehorned it. We shoved it in her face. Chapter 44, her uncle spends the whole chapter info dumping about the vampires and the order and the this and the that, and then she goes to ask him another question and he's like, I'm not in the habit of talking students with other students, when we just did for the whole chapter. Chapter 47, Jackson hops off. This is a part that I liked. There's a whole brawl because they tried to hurt Grace or whatever, and she watches him do some fucked up stuff, and immediately she sees that he's disgusted with himself, so she's like, well, did he deserve it? And I'm like, you have accepted this with sociopathic speed. And then she's like, the power you wield ... is unfathomable. First of all, no one talks like that. Second of all, you have turned the corner, Grace. You have just bloop, didn't happen. Don't care.
So there was a clip here that got corrupted, but the TLDR of it is Grace is horny for power.
Chapter 48 ends with the line from Jackson, I don't want you anywhere near that world, and I sure as hell don't want that world anywhere near you. Someone, anyone, take a second pass at things like that. There's too many words, and a lot of them are the same.
I'm hoping this will be the last time I have to jump in portrait mode. Another thing that got corrupted was she's running through these tunnels, the tunnels that will take me back to the school's building, the tunnels that will take me back to Cadmere. And like John Mulaney voice, that's the same sentence twice.
Chapter 49, Jackson literally paraphrases a famous line from Jurassic Park, talking about his brother who wanted more money, more power, more everything. He's like, he got so wrapped up in what he could do and what he could gain that he didn't think about if he should. Insert Jurassic Park clip. Same chapter, he says, we're balancing on a razor-thin tightrope and every minute is a balancing act. So we said balancing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Within 10 words, we said balancing twice. Reading is power. Guys, that's not even the end of it. There's 20 more chapters. You think we're done? We're not. Chapter 52, immediately after Jackson tells Grace all about his brother and his evil plans, and that Jackson can't be in love with her or be with her because that puts a target on her back because everyone's either mad at Jackson for killing his brother and stopping the war or wanting to hurt Jackson for hurting their family. Like, it's very convoluted. His friend McKee, I don't know, I couldn't tell what his name actually was, but I loved him. Says it all over again. We get it again from a different point of view, so that's always fun to waste pages with saying information again. Leah says making plans is not Jackson's modus operandi, instead of just saying it's not his MO. We're not stupid. Just say it's not his MO. Chapter 54, wrapping his arms around me so that I am snuggled up in the blanket and his arms. Again, for the love of God, read it out loud. Read it out loud. Yeah. She says they kiss until the colors behind my eyes are brighter than the aurora borealis. She says Jackson drops kisses on her eyes. Do you mean your eyelids? Did he kiss your eyeball? This is all in chapter 54, by the way. Chapter 57. We get a really good line. This is in the middle of like the fighting and like the scary stuff. We get a really great line that's like, for the first time I understand why an animal caught in a trap would be willing to chew its own foot off. Powerful. But then she keeps talking about why. She keeps like a long-winded explanation of what it means. There was a very impactful sentence, Tracy Wolff. You could have just left it there. We would understand the terror, the desperation, the urgency if you would have just left it there and not treated your readers like they're stupid. Chapter 58, I'll get to. She's being carried by a dragon. Okay, we're gonna get there, don't worry. She falls and dislocates her shoulder. And she says, like, her inner monologue's like, and here I thought Alaska would be boring. You know, it is boring this entire chapter, because instead of letting me, the reader, sit in the terror and the tension of a dragon vampire battle, you keep making fucking little quips and remarks. You are a human. You should be afraid, not just like irritated by the situation of two mythical creatures trying to kill you, and you only just found out they existed 14 chapters ago. Make it make sense. Chapter 60, she gets hit in the head, which dazes my already not functioning so great brain. That's a line from the book. Chapter 61, we use the word sickening 4 times during one fight scene. Sickening crunch, another sickening crunch with a sickening thud. Oh my God. Chapter 64. So the school only serves animal blood, which allows the vampires to go out during the day, but if they drink human blood, they can only come out at night. And Jackson explains this as like an insulin spike, except a spike in a hormone that makes it impossible for him to be in the sun. And again, this is in the last 2 chapters of the book. I don't give a fuck. Chapter 65. Hudson is there. Okay, they're just walking in the hallway. She says, oh, hey, you never told me the end of that joke. Ha ha ha. And then Hudson is there behind Jackson, materialized in the flesh with a sword, goes to stab Jackson. Grace like grabs him and turns him. And then, you guys, if I said this on my Instagram story, if I gave you if I let you guess every minute of every hour for the next 4 years, you would not guess how this book ends. And I'm about to tell you, spoilers, by the way. The last chapter is from Jackson's point of view, because when Grace turns herself to block Hudson's sword, she turns into a fucking gargoyle. A gargoyle. She becomes a gargoyle. Because like she's trying to trap Hudson or keep Hudson away, so she's trapped him in the stone or is in like a alternate plane with him via the stone, and the gargoyle looks like her still, and Jackson's like touching the face of the gargoyle. And if we had a fuck quota from the publisher, we used it all in Jackson's chapter. He says it like literally 16 times. And that's how it ends. Because I need to stop sweating and being so furious about that ending. We're gonna talk about parts I actually liked. Because again, and I'll tell you if they were right before a cringe part, which they usually were. Chapter 6, she runs into these 2 guys out in the hallway, and she's like, I could swear he was sniffing me, which was totally not bizarre and not ghost-like behavior at all. Because right before this, she was like, does this castle have ghosts like Hogwarts? That was a cringe part, okay? It was funny because I was listening to it at 2 times speed, so she said it really fast, so it was funny. I doubt it would be as funny in the actual book. Chapter 7, he whispers in her ear, you have no idea what I know. And I was like, okay, it's kind of hot or whatever. There were some like really good and like really sexy parts of this, I'm not gonna lie. Chapter 9, they're going to like this party, welcome party for Grace, and Macy's like, we're gonna be fashionably late, and she was like, we could be fashionably absent, which I thought was funny. We get a whole like introduction to the cliques at the school, and we talk about soft, flowery, delicate people in the back of the room, muscular people near the windows, super tall people in the middle, and like black and white wearing like old money people. So I called it in chapter 9 that we had dragons, werewolves, witches, and vampires, and those were the 4 groups that we were seeing. But she does say, when she sees the tall people, she's like, basketball anyone? And I thought that was funny. Chapter 10, she takes a drink and it goes down the wrong pipe, and she like leaves because she's like, at least if I find a bathroom I can die in peace. And I LOL'd. Chapter 15, oh, so both her parents died like a month before she goes to this boarding school, and her uncle runs the boarding school, and her uncle reminds her a lot of her dad, and he like hugs her or something in chapter 15, and it reminds her of her dad. Every time she like thinks about her parents, it's like a really nice little, like, it makes me sad, but it's like good like writing, which she negates it later on, how much Grace misses her parents. I'll get to it. Oh, the reveal that she was outside and like it was super cold and she was running around, and then she runs into Leah and Jackson, who are having an argument, and Leah slaps Jackson and blah blah blah, and it isn't until she gets back to her room that she realizes that neither Leah nor Jackson was wearing a jacket, which I was like, boom, that was like a good way to end the chapter. Chapter 17, Grace is arguing with Macy. She says, he's not the one who tried to kill me, and Macy's like, you've only been here a few days, give it time. I thought that was funny. That's the line that Jackson literally copies a couple chapters later, which irritated me because that's clearly Macy's voice. Macy's pretty great. Sometimes she's pretty cringe. Chapter 18, his breath is so warm and soft that I can feel it everywhere, even deep inside. And I said, okay, you horny bitch. And then I said, was it cringe or did I like it, or both? I don't know. And then later on in that same chapter, Jackson says, Grace, and it's barely a whisper, but I feel it all the way inside myself. Like, that's Yeah, okay. Chapter 19, they're at a snowball fight, and Macy like jumps up against the tree and climbs up, and she's like, did she just do parkour against that tree? And then she like turns to Macy and she's like, did you just parkour that tree? And the first line I was like, this is dumb. And the second line when she asks Macy like, did you just parkour that tree? I did laugh, I'm not gonna lie. Chapter 20, she was like, so much for fitting in, now I might as well be painted biohazard orange. I thought that was funny. Chapter 21, Jackson's carrying her because she like sprained her ankle, and she's talking and he's like, Grace, and she's like, what? And he's like, shut up. I thought that was funny. Macy goes to get ice because she's scared of Jackson, and Jackson's in their room, and Grace says et tu brute about her leaving, and I thought that was funny. Grace says she can take her shoe off herself, and Jackson says, maybe I want to do it for you, and Macy like squeaks, which I also thought was funny. Macy also says, you can tell me, you can trust me, we're family, and then Grace almost starts crying, which I thought was sweet. Chapter 25, I'll mention this part that I liked when I mention a cringe thing because it's directly related to a cringe thing. Jackson comes over and he's massaging her ankle, and it feels really good, and then they almost kiss, and this was a really good part. And then he gives her this little note. It's from an Anais Nin journal, and it says something like, I dreamed you, I wished for you. It's a nice sentiment, but he ripped it out of a book, so like cardinal sin, we don't condone that behavior. Chapter 27, he sits with her at breakfast, and his friends, like the order, sit with him, and they're ragging on him about being sweet with Grace, which I thought was really funny. It was really cute. Oh, we get this line, a dark and devastating desperation in his eyes. I liked that one. Chapter 28 is titled To Be or Not to Be is a question, not a pickup line. I liked that. She says wanting Jackson feels like opening a vein. I liked that. He says, I love the way your hair smells. It's a really cute moment. It sounds gross, but it's not. Oh, Jackson is being a dick to Flint, and Grace stands up to him and like puts him in his fucking place, and I really enjoyed that. There are two aspects of this that are almost anti-Twilight in a way that I did like. Grace standing up to Jackson often, and sex positivity, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Chapter 31, she hears a student playing Autumn Leaves on the saxophone, which was her dad's favorite song, and it sends her like in a, just like a horrible like crying spiral, which I felt. Oh, she says, she starts to cry, and then it says, grief is a wild thing within me. I loved that. The next chapter is titled, It's Not a Coincidence That Denali and Denial Use All the Same Letters. I like that. Ew, chapter 33, she flips the script on Twilight and everything. She's telling him that he's the hottest person ever, his scar makes him sexy, and he's all like, I'm not, like, not me, like, but he's the one that's like beautiful but doesn't know it, and she's the one that's like, no, you are, which I liked. I did like that. She makes the move in chapter 34, and she says, did you ever want something but you were scared of taking it? And he says, yes. And she said, what did you do? And he said, I took it anyway. And then they kiss, and I was like, that's pretty good. Chapter 36 is titled No Harm, All Foul. I liked that. Chapter 45, this is right after she finds out about all the species at the school. She goes to the library and wonders if the books about vampires and dragons would be under nonfiction or biology, which I thought was funny. She runs into Flint at the library. He can grow flowers in his hand because that's something dragons do now. And she says they're beautiful, and he says, you're beautiful. And he's like, relax, I'm not hitting on you, because when I hit on you, it'll be because you want me to. And I was like, what? Like, this is obviously Edward Jacob, but Flint is so much better than Jacob. Chapter 49, she basically tells him, like, you can tell me anything, like, I'm here for you, I'll listen. And it says, my words aren't sexy or slick, but they are sincere. And I said all out loud because I'm a simp. Chapter 50, she's in Jackson's room, and her uncle's like banging on the door to talk to Jackson, and they kind of take their time like letting him in, and he's like, thanks for rushing to let me in. And Jackson says, Grace had to get her clothes back on. They weren't doing anything. It was just like funny. Asshole, but funny. Chapter 51, Flint calls Jackson a tick, which I thought was funny. Chapter 52, it's titled If You Can't Live Without Me, Why Aren't You Dead Yet? Love that. Leah and Jackson's friend Mickey don't like each other, and Leah says, I'd say bite me, but I don't know where you've been. And Mickey replies, I would catch rabies if I bit you, which I thought was funny. Chapter 54, Grace has been talking about the Northern Lights, like the whole book, and Jackson takes her up to see the lights, and then gives her an Aurora Borealis necklace, which is cute, and she says, it's beautiful, and then he says, well, then you're well matched, which was very cute. But then cringe, she immediately after that, she's like, oh my God, you're sappy. And he's like, well, you're ridiculously beautiful. Like, we could have just left it at the cute line about then you're evenly matched. That was really cute. Like, she always just goes a little too far. Chapter 58, Leah punches a hole through Flint's dragon wing, which sounded like it really hurt. Chapter 63, they say they love each other, but he says he doesn't think this can work because there's still going to be people who want to hurt her because of him. And she's able to kind of talk him into like allowing himself to be loved, which is nice. That's all I liked. So let's get into things that made me cringe / things that make the book sound dated. And then we'll talk about unintentional Twilight satire. Things that make this book sound dated, she info dumps and says, like, according to Wikipedia, the weather is 20 degrees below freezing if the app on my phone can be believed. Like, shut up already, please, for the love of God. What else makes this book sound dated? Grace puts on a Harry Styles t-shirt when she takes a shower, and when she comes back into the room, Macy is dancing around to Watermelon Sugar. That's not going to be relevant in a year. I'm not a Harry Styles hater. I just did a whole video about Harry Styles fanfiction, but good Lord. She says FML in chapter 9, and I said, did a 50-year-old woman write this? And then I looked and I could not find how old Tracy Wolff was, but I don't think she knows that we don't say FML anymore. I'm 25 and I didn't even say FML, literally, like non-ironically, when I was a teenager 10 years ago. She says something about self-imposed isolation, which little did she know what a phrase in the lexicon that would become in just a couple of months after this book came out. Let's see. Chapter 16, she says it's annoying AF. She is trying to walk away from Jackson. She says she's doing her best Dory impression. Just keep walking, just keep walking. That's so annoying and stupid, and I hate it. Chapter 20, she says FML. Chapter 21, Macy looks at them like she's getting punked. I just like decide. Chapter 22, she's texting her friend from back home and she tells her TTYF. And I just wrote, am I stupid? What does that mean? And then I wrote, talk to you forever, question mark, exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point. I never heard that in my life. Chapter 25, they're talking about like their favorite movies. This was the most fanfiction-y shit I ever read in my life. And her favorite movie right now is To All the Boys I've Loved Before. I'm not hating. Jackson loves Rogue One. Chapter 26, the music that's playing is creepy AF. Chapter 35, the nurse is intimidating AF. She's not saying as fuck, she's saying AF. And again, nobody says that non-ironically. I type it, I don't say it. Chapter 43, something is dangerous AF. Chapter 60, she's like FML and Leah's too. So like fuck my life and Leah's too. Just say fuck my life. I don't know why you won't say fuck. I don't understand. I didn't count how many times this book made me cringe. There were a lot. But I did have visceral reactions that I actually ended up recording on Snapchat while I was reading the book, like listening to it on my phone. I like just stopped it, opened Snapchat, and just took a video of myself reacting because it was that bad. Some of the first ones are when she first meets Jackson. This is cringe, but I didn't even think about it. There's like a chess set that's vampires versus dragons. This whole book is vampires versus dragons so that it's not like Twilight, because there are werewolves in this book, but it's not werewolves versus vampires. It's dragons versus vampires. Because, okay, that makes sense. She says that Jackson has skyscraper cheekbones. I don't know what that means. Double wide shoulders. What? Nothing to do but admit that this boy is sexy AF, a little wicked, a lot wild, and all dangerous. This is all in chapter 2. Seriously, when exactly did I become the heroine of some YA romance? The new girl swooning over the hottest, most unattainable boy in school? Chapter 3, he quotes Hamlet to her, but he says heaven and hell instead of heaven and earth, and then she corrects him, and this is just, he says something like, what is this, the welcome to Alaska party or whatever? And he's like, more like, welcome to hell, and I'll get the fuck out. I'm like, all right, dude. They have a whole exchange about big bad monsters that's so cliche, and then he picks up the chess piece, the vampire queen chess piece, as if he's talking about chess pieces the whole time. It was weird. She's so horny for this insane man screaming at her and cornering her. It's hysterical. She says she lost, he's like, what have you ever lost? And she's like, everything that matters, talking about her parents. And then he changes, his agony visible behind layers and layers of defenses he's erected. It's calling to her own agony. They are so connected. They're staring at each other. He pulls on one of her curls and makes her super horny. 5 minutes ago, he was being a total douche to me. Douche takes me right out of it. She says when he moves his hair, he's got a scar down half of his face that she didn't notice until just then. How long is his hair that you can't see a scar down his entire face? A fallen angel with a bad boy vibe for miles. Spare me. She's touching his scar. He says, I don't understand you. And then she quotes the Hamlet quote back to him in response. And I am falling asleep and also throwing up. Chapter 4. She's talking about Flint. A smile in his eyes that is different from the other guy's iciness, as the stars just outside the windows are, from the endless midnight blue of the sky, and I've fallen asleep again while she was spinning this long-winded fucking metaphor. And I didn't put it in the writing part, I put it in the cringe part because I had to stop and just Chapter 4 still, she says, I want a name to go with his insane body and even more insane face. Chapter 5 is called Things Hot Pink and Harry Styles Have in Common. And then we find out his name is Jackson Vega. Jackson Vega. Some guys come in wearing concert tees and ripped jeans, and she wonders if they're ghosts, like how Hogwarts has ghosts. And that's when she says the thing about, like, I could swear he was sniffing me, which is not ghost-like behavior at all, which I still think is funny. Chapter 7 is called Something Really Freaking Wicked, This Way Comes. They're, like, gonna throw her out in the snow, and she says, with my thin California blood, I won't last in the snow. We get it, you're from California. You have told us 5,000 times. She thinks, Jackson saves her from these guys who turn out to be werewolves, because they're like, sorry, Jackson, the moon was doing its thing, you know? I don't fucking know. She thanks him, and he's like, I just made you a pawn in a game. And she's like, dude, what? But then he's staring at her, and it's making her hot and bothered. She has blood on her face. He, like, wipes the blood off her bottom lip and sucks it into his mouth, but she finds super sexy. And he's like, this isn't like your old high school. And I'm just like, okay. Chapter 8. Talking about, I don't know what they're talking about. Something about watching TV together or something. She's like, I'd die without Netflix. Have you seen this? These are quotes, verbatim quotes. Have you seen this show, Legacies? It's about a bunch of supernatural creatures that go to a boarding school. Isn't that silly? And then Macy says, yeah, who can resist a hot vampire? And that's the point where I wrote, guys, are we sure this isn't Twilight satire? And then they see a werewolf on the show, and Grace is like, I can't help remembering what those guys said about the moon doing its thing. This is chapter 8, and she still cannot figure out what is going on until like chapter 40 something.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
Chapter 9, she mentions the pterodactyls in her stomach again. Chapter 10 is titled Turns Out the Devil Wears Gucci. Would I have probably titled my chapter that after reading it? Yes. Did it still make me cringe? Yes. She calls his voice low, wicked, and wild. She can't stop thinking about running my tongue over the perfect bow of his upper lip, dragging his lower lip between my teeth. And then she's like, I don't even know where these thoughts are coming from. Baby, you 17. You know where they're coming from. She's like, I try to think of anything else. The snow. And I was like, just think about being horny. I don't know what your problem is. Chapter 11, his moods change more quickly than my BFF's Insta feed. I have never said Insta feed in my life until right now. Chapter 13 is titled Just Bite Me. I hate it. Chapter 14 is called Knock Knock Knocking on Death's Door, and I guess she just loves bastardizing Guns N' Roses song titles because this is the second time. Flint kisses her cheek, and I wrote, I'm already waiting for this great value Edward Jacob triangle. And then she says, but he makes her feel nothing compared to Jackson. Chapter 15, she says, what is this, Mean Girls Alaska edition? Shut the fuck up. Chapter 15, still a weird sense that I should turn around, because when she went into the library, her stomach was like, no, like, get out. She feels that again, and she's like, but I know I'm just being silly. And I'm like, survival instinct has left the chat. Chapter 16, the title is Sometimes Keeping Your Enemies Close is the Only Thing That Prevents Hypothermia, which is not a chapter title, it's a sentence. She says his sexy AF hair is blowing. And then we get the line that I kept seeing in the advertisements for this book, which is Jackson says, everyone answers to me eventually. Which would be fine on its own. Not really. And then Grace says, oh my God, what an ass hat. Not asshole, which would make me laugh. Sorry, my dog started barking. Chapter 17 is called It's Discretion, Not Diamonds. That's a girl's best friend, which is not only cringe, but grammatically incorrect. You could have just said discretion is a girl's best friend, and we would have got the reference. I came up with that immediately after reading it. I don't know who your editor was. They should be put in jail. Chapter 17, Macy's like, we are talking about Jackson, right? Arrogance of a rock star? Shut up. And then Grace is thinking like she didn't mention the scar that turns him from pretty to sexy AF and scary AF. Shut up. Chapter 18, something tells me this boy and his world famous disappearing act is going to be the death of me. Something else I want to mention where I just don't know where to fit it in, it's not cringe, but it's just weird, is the phrase civil twilight. They say it probably 6 to 8 times in this book, and I never heard that in my life, and it was weirding me out because my book is called Civil Blood, and then obviously this is like a Twilight satire unintentionally. I looked it up and it's like the brightest phase of Twilight, and it's just obvious that she wanted to like put the word Twilight in there but didn't want to be like, it's Twilight outside. Chapter 20, Grace is like, can I just say I'm feeling a lot like Alice in Wonderland here? Things get curiouser and curiouser. Shut up. Chapter 21 is called I like standing on my own 2 feet, but getting swept off them feels surprisingly good too. And it took more than one line in a Google Doc to write that. That's not a chapter title. That's a fucking paragraph. That's a sentence and a half. She calls him super sexy twice in one paragraph. My whole body lights up like the Aurora Borealis. I'm still dying to see. Chapter 22, Macy, who I love, says some weird shit right here. He looks at you like it physically hurts him not to be touching you. Baby, if he wanted you anymore, he'd spontaneously combust. All right. And then she keeps going. It sounds like every cliche in the book, but he's different around you. Somehow less intense, but more intense. Chapter 23, Macy starts talking about how Flint and Jackson are mortal enemies, blah, blah, blah. Grace says, this is cringe for multiple reasons. Grace says, what is this, the Breakfast Club? Even they figured out they could all get along. So Grace, you know what the Breakfast Club is. All right, that's fine. But also shut the fuck up. You've been waiting for Macy to explain what the hell is going on at this school for a long time. Let her tell you. Shut up. Shut up. Chapter 24. Jackson's texting her about her ankle. And she says something and he's like, I don't know the punchline to whatever knock knock joke you're setting up. And she bursts out laughing because he's funny over text. That wasn't funny. That wasn't funny at all. Like, even a little bit funny. Now they're telling stupid jokes over text. I would hate to be reading this physically. Like, getting it read to me was hard enough, but to read like text, like whole pages of text, which is all these next 2 chapters are, I would literally shoot myself. Then he tries a joke. What do you get when you cross a vampire and a snowman? Frostbite. And my soul leaves my body because what in the 8th grade Twilight fanfiction is happening? And it gets worse. Jackson has food sent to her room from the cafeteria somehow. Chapter 25 is called Truly, Madly, Deeply Bitten. They're texting. She says, you suck. He says, you have no idea how much. I threw up in my mouth. There's a Niall Horan reference, a Hozier reference, a Rihanna reference. This is also when they're talking about Rogue One, Beethoven, Childish Gambino, Brown Eyed Girl, which offends me because my mom sings that song to me. But the Jackson's favorite song is Truly, Madly, Deeply by Savage Garden. Insert Snapchat of me cry laughing here. I had to take several minutes to calm down after I read that. Then another woman comes to Grace's room to deliver her a package. It is a library book. It is Twilight. I gotta go. Insert the other Snapchat of me screaming here. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. This was a part I liked because Macy was in the room when this came and she's laughing her ass off because she knows Jackson is a vampire. She thinks this is fucking hysterical. Chapter 26 is called The Uniform Doesn't Make the Woman, but it sure brings out the insecurities. Literally, shut up. Chapter 28, we're doing Hamlet in class. Of course. The teacher's like, although you look like the shy type, despite your association with Katmir's most notorious student. I was like, why do the teachers know/care so much? Chapter 34 is titled All's Fair in Love and Earthquakes. I hate it so much. She makes the move to close the space between them and she's dazzled, guys. I haven't even gotten to the unintentional Twilight satire, but it keeps sneaking its way in. They kiss, and then his mouth goes crazy on mine. Lips, tongue, teeth. It's a cacophony of sensations, a riot of pleasure. His hands are vices on my biceps, vices on my biceps. I like the way they rhyme. Chapter 39, we find out Flint is a dragon. With a name like Flint, how could he not have fire? Shut the fuck up. Who needs LSD when you go to Monster High? Shut up, once again. Chapter 40 is called Be Careful What You Wish For, and I wrote Go Fuck Yourself with this title. They're talking about Macy being a witch. Surprise, she's a witch, so is her uncle, Grace's uncle. Can you fly around the room? No, I can't fly around the room. Grace says, what kind of witch are you if you can't do something that an 11-year-old can? And Macy says, the kind that doesn't come from J.K. Rowling's brilliant imagination. That aged poorly. We'll go ahead and talk about this. She had a bite on her neck that she thought was Jackson, but the school nurse bit her because Jackson used his vampire venom to heal her cut, and it worked too well, so the nurse had to cut through the healed skin with her vampire teeth because this is Twilight satire, so of course they have venom. Vampires can override each other's venom. Most of the vampires would have a hard time not draining you dry, but not Jackson. Chapter 41 is called Vampires, Dragons, and Werewolves Oh My, which physically hurt me to just read out loud. Chapter 43, her uncle says, Macy told me she spilled all the tea. With no hint of, like, that's what you kids say these days, right? Like, not the ... tea ? Or like not knowing, like not really getting the slang. No, he got the slang, okay? Her uncle, her middle-aged uncle, he knows about the tea. My boyfriend didn't even know what tea was until I told him. You don't know what tea is unless you're on Twitter for 90% of your life. Chapter 44, her uncle wants to send her back to San Diego because people keep trying to fucking kill her, and she's like, she doesn't want to go back to San Diego because of Jackson, not because the only family she has in the world is in Alaska. She thinks of Jackson first. She says it's because of Macy and Finn. She thinks Jackson. That's messed up. Her uncle says, I know Jackson can be ... seductive. Sir? Uncle Finn, headmaster of the school? Why do you know that? Chapter 45 is titled, I always knew there was fire between us. I just didn't know it was your breath. Shut up. Chapter 46 is titled, I'll get you and your little dog too. I've had enough. Chapter 48 is called, Is that a wooden stake in your pocket or are you just happy to see me? And I wrote, They're getting worse. Her and Jackson are like talking in the bed, and he pulls her on top of him and kisses her. He like yanks her, and it says something like, he kisses and yanks, and she says the kiss curls my toes but the yank curls everything else, because he yanks her on top of him. The yank curls everything else? What are you talking about? What is curling? He tells her all about his brother, how he had to kill his brother because of this and that, and she says his pain makes her ache more than she even ached for her dead parents who just died a month ago. What? You wear indifference like a mask. You wield coldness like a weapon. First of all, no one in the history of the world talks like that. And second of all, you were just saying AF and FML 10 chapters ago. Don't switch it up on me, Grace. Don't even try. Chapter 50, her uncle shows up and tries to fix herself in the mirror, but there isn't one. And she's like, well, how do you see yourself? And he holds up his phone and goes, selfie anyone? Shut up. She wonders if he ages like a Baby Yoda thing. She says Baby Yoda. I gotta go. Chapter 52, she's texting him and she's like, I like it when you bite, and he replies, good, because I like the way you taste, and I threw up in my mouth. Chapter 53, she puts on one of Macy's dresses and Macy tugs it down to get it over her, quote, ridiculous curve. She describes her own curves as ridiculous. Ew, get out. Macy says that Grace lusts after Jackson's sexy, sexy body. And this is where I was like, you know what? Good for them. They are 17 years old and they are sex positive, and they're like, you know what? If she wants to go get some from Jackson, that's awesome. I love that. I love that. It's so much better than the 3 books of tortured 100-year-old virgin Mormon values that we dealt with in Twilight. They're in his room or whatever. They drink some tea that Leah brought them. It turns out, just to like give you a little bit of idea of what's going on, Leah is another vampire. She was dating Hudson, who's Jackson's brother. Hudson died, and Leah's like real fucked up about it. So actually, it ends up being that Leah orchestrated the death of Grace's parents to get Grace to come to the school so that Leah could use her in an ancient ritual to bring Hudson back from the dead. That's why Leah was trying to befriend her the whole time, even though Leah's like kind of closed off from everybody else. Grace talks to Leah about like being Jackson's friend again, because they used to be best friends before Hudson died. So Leah brings Jackson tea. They both drink it. Turns out to be drugged. So Jackson bites her and like pretty much like drinks her. So when she escapes, she's pretty woozy, and she's like, I gotta get out of here, not so I can live, but because if he kills me, he will feel really bad. And self-preservation has left the chat. She's like, I don't care if I die, I just care if Jackson feels bad about killing me. Like, while we're on the topic of Leah, like, first of all, Leah gave her tea. Like, I can't even find it in a very early chapter, and I immediately was like, Leah's a witch, that shit's poison, she don't like you. I just like had a feeling about Leah. And then Leah kept showing up where Grace was, and like Flint didn't want to leave Grace alone with Leah, but nobody would like say what was going on. And then Leah mentions to Grace that she and Jackson are like expected to be together because of their family dynasties, and the second that she said that, Grace should have been like, oh, Leah wants up on my man, better either say something to her or back off because she's scary. Like, the minute that Leah was like, me and Jackson are expected to be together to carry on our family dynasties, you stop fucking trusting Leah. The first time I paused on reading was chapter 8, and the question that I had on my mind was, why the fuck did Finn and Macy not tell Grace what kind of school this was? They explained it later on that she just couldn't handle that with her parents being dead. And I'm like, I would rather have known. I would 1000% rather have known. Give me the option to not go. Oh, in chapter 15, we get a lot of detail on how you dress for the Alaskan wilderness cold. And the only information that I could find about Tracy Wolff is that she lives in Texas. So I have to think that this kind of info dump, along with the information about Alaska that we didn't need in chapter 1, is because Tracy Wolff hasn't been in the cold and did a lot of research and was like, y'all gonna learn today. I spent a lot of time researching how to dress for the cold. That's the only thing I can think of. Jackson and his friends are not just called the Order because they're the popular boys. They're called the Order because they are the children of the 6 ancient vampire families. We get a whole info dump from Uncle Finn about how there are 6 ancient vampire families, and the kids are super strong. This is one of the biggest problems. Actually, let me go ahead and talk about this. One of the biggest problems that I had with this book is that Jackson is a vampire for pretty much no reason, because not only is he a vampire, he's telekinetic. He makes earthquakes happen when he gets out of control. He's able to take Grace hundreds of feet up into the sky during the Aurora Borealis so they can like dance around in the stars together. He's able to use the Force and choke one of the werewolves who tried to hurt Grace. Like, he uses at the end when he's trying to stop Leah and the smoke that is his brother's spirit, he like makes a vortex and throws it at her, and I'm like, just be a witch. Leah didn't need to be a vampire either. She was doing a spell and an altar thing, and like, just be a witch. The whole time I was like, why even be a vampire?
The reason.
I had a reason.
What was the reason?
I had a reason.
What was the reason?
Everything that happened because of Jackson's powers, or because of like the only thing is that there needed to be a bite on her neck for her to realize there was vampires afoot, and that the Twilight got like to say it's a Twilight-ish book. That was the only reason I could think of. I do want to talk about the unintentional Twilight satire. Chapter 3, right away, the first time she ever meets Jackson, pushing him is like pushing a wall of granite. I already talked about this. Chapter 8, Macy says, who can resist a hot vampire? Some of these things intersect. They're both cringe and Twilight satire, or stupid writing and Twilight satire. I'm gonna try not to repeat too many. Chapter 18, something tells me this boy and his world-famous disappearing act is going to be the death of me. A very famous line in Twilight of Bella being the death of Edward. Like, I know that these are just phrases and anybody can use them, but like, once they've been used in a really, really famous YA series that you clearly want to be compared to, maybe don't say it again. Flint climbs up a tree with Grace on his shoulder like Spider-Man, and all I could think of, I had to stop reading because all I could think of was this.
You better hold on tight, spider monkey.
Chapter 21, his scar, Jackson's scar on his face, makes his smile into a crooked little smirk. Who else had a crooked smirk? The vampire this is 1000% based on. Chapter 34, they've been outside, and when she touches him, she realizes how cold he is and thinks it's from him being outside, and he like jumps away from her and is like, yeah, it was because I was outside. And it's chapter 24, and we've already figured out by like, the reader has already figured out, at least by like chapter 10 maybe, that he's a vampire. A big pet peeve is when the reader is 8,000 steps ahead of the main character. How annoying is it to read a book? Let me know, comment down below. If you don't mind it, please let me know. But I'm very annoyed when I'm smarter than the main character. That's very annoying to me. Open your eyes. Grace is not smart. She keeps acting like Grace is so smart. Grace not smart. Chapter 38, after Grace gets bitten, Jackson goes to the mountains. He like runs away to the mountains, and I'm like, who else used to run away to the mountains all the time? Edward and the Cullens. Chapter 38, because I have to hear it out loud, I ask, what did make these marks? Insert clip from Twilight here. Chapter 40, I already mentioned all the shit about vampire venom because this is a Twilight satire, unintentionally. So of course they have venom as well. Of course this is all biological as well. We get a whole info dump from Uncle Finn about how there's born vampires. This is in chapter 44, I think. Born vampires versus made vampires, and the born ones have powers and this, and there's ancient families, and I didn't care at all. Chapter 41, Flint is literally just a Jacob clone. I mean, he's better than Jacob. Like, I'm more attracted to him than I was to Jacob, but like, he's Jacob. Chapter 42, Jackson's eyes smolder at her. A lot of fire and ice comparisons between the dragon and the vampire. Big surprise there. Who else got fire and ice comparisons? Jacob and Edward. Chapter 43, we're getting the tea on the turf war between the dragons and the vampires, which makes it not like Twilight because it's not werewolves, it's dragons. There's werewolves too, but we don't fight with them. We kind of do, but it's more about the dragons. Don't know why. Doesn't seem to matter. And then that's pretty much that. The last one is chapter 47 out of 66 because the rest of the book is about, like, it's about witches. They turn into witches all of a sudden, and vampirism doesn't fucking matter anymore at all. Editing and sick Victoria here. It does matter because once Jackson uses like the vortex to stop Leah and Hudson from coming back from the dead, he's super weak. He's also lost a lot of blood from a stab wound, so Grace lets him drink from her so that he can escape and get them out. But it really didn't have to be like that. Just like a couple more random things I do want to touch on. This entire book takes place over the course of 1 week. Chapter 45, the librarian is a native Alaskan with elemental magic, which is a big yikes from me. You didn't have to do that. Again, about the sex positivity, that's great. Grace is getting ready to go to Jackson's room for their date, and I do have a lot of thoughts and feelings on the extremely lax rules regarding people of other genders being in each other's rooms. I don't understand how everyone in this school is not pregnant if you're just allowed to go over to a guy's room at night. Doesn't seem like that would be a thing that would be allowed. So that was CRAVE, you guys. I gotta say, beginning this series with After makes everything so much less bad. That's not a sentence, but by comparison, I think I gave After like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. That was way too high. This book was far more frustrating because it's the same genre that I write, first of all, but also because we were so close so many times to it being decent, and then we had to shoehorn in Twilight or shoehorn in an info dump or say a cringy thing that didn't fit the characters, or like so many weird choices, so many repetitive words, so many things that I have to wonder what kind of deadline she was on, or like what kind of like editor situation she had, because it feels like if she would have had like another month or another round of edits or a beta reader group, we could have avoided a lot of this. And this is obviously setting it up for the second book, which I guess comes out this fall, which I will obviously do a video on, because I have to know. After she turns into a gargoyle, how am I not gonna know? How am I not gonna read it? That's how they get you. I gotta know what happens. And I think I owe it to you guys as well. So that was Crave by Tracy Wolff. I read Crave, so you don't have to. If you did read Crave, let me know in the comments what you thought of it. I do not know how I felt about it because I really hated parts of it a lot, but I see the potential, and there were I spent a whole good chunk of this video talking about parts I liked. There wasn't a single part of After that I wanted to highlight. But there were a lot of things in Crave that I liked. Again, I just think if she had had a little bit more time, that could have really been decent. And if they would not have tried to make it a Twilight comp, why are we still trying to write Twilight ripoffs 15 years after Twilight came out? I don't understand. Before y'all come for me, the publishing industry told me that Civil Blood was similar to Twilight, and so when I had to come up with comps, I had to use Twilight. So go fuck yourself. The next video in this series will be Hush Hush by Becca Fitzpatrick. I have it in my audiobooks from the library. I'm gonna start it. I just finished Crave yesterday, so like I need a minute. But in the meantime, I'll see you next Monday, ? I think I'm gonna do these every Monday since I'm still not working and I have time to read an audiobook a week. Why read books that I actually like? Why not just read books that make me mad and then talk to you about them on the internet? I will see you guys next week. Bye.